Hello and welcome to the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. I'm Annette Young. Coming up, despite community outrage, scores of Arab women take up arms in Syria as the campaign against the Islamic State group intensifies. Also, how the art of cartooning is being used to tell the stories of female refugees as they risk their lives to cross Europe. And when the runway becomes a platform for political protest as American women use New York Fashion Week to voice their anger at US President Donald Trump. But we begin in war-torn Syria, where hundreds of Arab female fighters have joined their Kurdish sisters in the war against the Islamic State group. They may be fighting the world's most feared jihadists, but these women are also confronting the outright disapproval of their relatives and society. But for many, it's also a chance to experience equality for the first time, even if it's in the battlefield. Josh Vardy has more.
Gearing up for war has become a daily routine now for Doza Jihan. This 21-year-old has joined up with the Syrian Democratic Forces, a mixed religion coalition of rebel fighters. Doza is currently fighting the Islamic State group to the northeast of Raqqa. Kurdish women have long been on the front line of the Syrian conflict, but Doza is Arab. In order to fight, she, like other Arabic women, has had to stand up against tradition and go against the wishes of her family.
At the start, the idea was difficult to accept, especially in Syrian society. It was difficult for them to accept that a woman can fight in a place like that. But if people come and see what's going on, this way of thinking will change.
Doza's not the only Arab woman to fight in this unit. Heavy joined the Syrian Democratic Forces in 2015 and since has been using a Kurdish nickname. She says she wants to free her country from the jihadists and fight also for equality of the sexes.
My objective is to liberate all the women who live under the oppression of the Islamic State group, but also the women of our society who don't have their own say in things. If men have the right to take part in society, then women should also have this right.
The Kurds see men and women as equal, including on the battlefield. In Syria, women represent around 40% of the Kurdish troops fighting there, a fact that's made Arab women with feminist ideals take notice. However, according to this Kurdish spokesperson, recent major victories against the Islamic State organization have also led more women to join the ranks of the Syrian Democratic Forces.
There are 1,000 women who recently joined our fighters. We want to establish a strong organization. We want a large group of Arab women among the Syrian Democratic Forces so they can represent all Arab women.
Kurdish and Arab fighters united on the battlefield and determined to win. According to them, to be a woman even represents an advantage, to humiliate the jihadists. They say the Islamic State fighters believe they won't reach paradise if they're killed by a woman.
Now, as the Syrian war enters its 7th year, the number of female refugees arriving in the Balkans has grown dramatically. According to the UN, more than 40% of refugees last year were both women and children. But they're also highly vulnerable to harassment and violence. The charity organisation CARE has now found an empowering way to tell their graphic stories, as Belle Lupton found out.
Of course I was afraid. I was afraid of war, of planes, and I'm afraid for the future because I don't know how long it's going to be like this in Syria. I left for the sake of my children.
Dana's story isn't new, but the way it's being told is. She made the journey from Syria with her 2 sons unaccompanied. Her husband had been kidnapped soon after the Islamic State group moved into her hometown of Manbij. Dana decided to take her chances with the people smugglers.
The smuggler locked the door. He told us we had to give him an extra 300 euros to pay for my son. That was after his first demand of 1,800 euros. He took us to an apartment in Kosovo. I was really afraid. I thought they were kidnapping my young children to sell their organs.
In a new project, unaccompanied women like Dana have had their experiences turned into short graphic novels. Their stories are often more distressing than men's.
A really harrowing scene that I had to try and find a way around drawing is that ISIS burned crates of Yazidi girls alive, and that was something that this family had witnessed. Seeing those images, it sends you into, at first, almost like a pit of despair. Graphic storytelling is probably one of the furthest reaching mediums. Images are something that bypasses culture. We all understand imagery.
Until recently, media outlets have been filled with images of male refugees. Men made the perilous journey in the hope of sending for family members once they'd been granted asylum in Europe. But border closures and an EU-Turkey deal have dashed those hopes, forcing women to follow on foot.
We are seeing now a rise in women travelling on their own. However, they're still not so much in the media, which is why we wanted to launch this project, because their stories aren't being told. And it is also very difficult to tell them because socially and culturally it's less acceptable for them to show their faces on camera. I heard a lot of stories of women being forced into prostitution, or what they sometimes term transactional sex or survival sex, just to have that protection, to be seen to be travelling with a man.
A grim irony that has become reality for women fleeing violence.
Now, with a new president at the helm and a different controversy swirling around Donald Trump every week, Americans are finding a way to voice their concern. Some women are even using fashion shows as a platform to slam his latest policies. Sanam Chantier has more.
If there were an award for the most political show at New York Fashion Week, Mara Hoffman would be in with a good chance. Her event kicked off with a statement by 4 organisers of the Women's March on Washington, which she herself attended.
We stand for women being held in airports, and we stand for women behind bars.
We dedicate ourselves to all the women around us.
This is a new trend in the US, glitz and glamour, making room for politics on the catwalk. These fashionistas are shining a spotlight on what's going on in society, especially at a time when President Donald Trump's contentious policies are increasingly dividing Americans. And they're not the only ones.
I feel like New York Fashion Week, the Grammys, a lot of these different platforms we're seeing, people are using these platforms to make political statements. And I think it's important for everyone to realize that no matter where you are, whether you're a model, whether you're a fashion designer, a singer, a performer, or even an activist like me, we all have a responsibility to stand up for the most marginalized.
At Mara Hoffman, the clothes themselves didn't bear any clear political messages. But the same can't be said for other fashion shows. Public School went for a glaring parody of Donald Trump's campaign slogan. Instead of Make America Great Again, garments were emblazoned with Make America New York, calling for the rest of the country to take on the city's more liberal values. Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein have also called for greater tolerance.
And finally, when you think of an Argentinian polo player, of course, the image that immediately comes to mind is that of a man. After all, the country is home to all of the top 5 ranked male players in the world. This is only about 460 women are registered to play, a tenth of the number of men in the game. Yet, like so many sports, it's starting to change.
By the time she was 4, Lia Salvo had learned to ride. By 11, she could hit a ball with a polo mallet on horseback. Now 29, she is considered to be the best polo player in Argentina and is defying the limits of a sport dominated by men. Salvo spent a decade playing in Britain and the United States, the top countries in the world for women's polo. And she wants to make Argentina a force in the women's game too.
We don't have the best women's polo in the world. We have the best men's by far, but without a doubt, women's polo is not the best in the world. And I don't understand why if the men are by far number 1, we aren't number 1.
Salvo is the first woman to participate in the prestigious Jockey Club Open tournament in Buenos Aires, winning the competition as part of a team alongside the world's top male player, Adolfo Cambiaso.
I
have no doubt that in the next 3 or 4 years we will compete with the United States and England as equals, no doubt.
Horse riding is anchored in Argentine culture and history, with its expert South American cowboys known as gauchos. And now that the women have gripped their mallets, even their strong rivals, England and the United States, are beginning to fear them.
And you know, back in the day, England produced some very strong ladies players, but I can see now that the men are really putting interest into the young girls growing up here, giving them the opportunity, making them play good polo on good grounds on amazing horses. So I think in the future there's going to be some absolute stars. I'm actually quite worried about it.
Yet in Argentina, the native home of the world's top 5 players, there are only 460 women players registered in the country, just a tenth of the number of men in the game.
And that's it for now. And if you'd like to comment on what you've just seen, you can head to our Facebook page. That's France24.51%. Or do send us a tweet at _51%. Thanks for your feedback so far, and please keep those comments coming in. Until our next show, bye for now.